Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Allie Haynes, and I'm the marketing intern at Momentum. Here we are on our third session of Wellness Wednesdays, and we are so glad that you're here. So with everything that's going on in this world, in the workforce, and working from home, the fight for social justice in communities all across our country and in Birmingham, we could all use some healing time. So through this series, we will give equal play to well-being in the most holistic sense, whether that be mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual health. So for those of you who are with us for your first time, welcome. If you're interested in seeing some of our past recordings, I will put that link in the Zoom chat box. You are making this time to invest in your well-being, and we are so proud of you for doing that. I want to thank some of our amazing sponsors for their year-round support of Momentum. These organizations have a strong commitment to advancing women in leadership, and we couldn't bring you today's session without their support. I want to start today's session with a question and ask that you type your answers in the chat box. So everyone put in the chat box, it's in the bottom of your screen, how you're doing today. We want to know, just right now. Oh, good, great, refreshed. We're off to a good start. So today we are having a different kind of session. We're going to start out with some meditation, and then our great speaker, Sharon Lovoy, will be talking about sleep. And it sounds like some of you have already gotten a great night's sleep. It is our honor to have our dear friend and exceptional leader, Sharon, with us today, and I'm going to post her bio in the chat. She is the owner of Lovoy's Teamworks, Inc. She's a training facilitator, an executive coach, keynote speaker, and intervention specialist in high-stakes organizational challenges. She has had the privilege of working with over 300 clients in the US and Canada. And you will hear her in a moment, but Andrea is going to start us off with some meditation now.
Thank you, Allie. So great to be with you this morning. And I'm incredibly excited to hear Sharon talk to us about sleep. That can be a challenge for me at times. And one of the things that I do is called 4 square breathing. It's also called box breathing. And that's what we're going to do this morning. So get comfortable in your chair. Feel how it supports you. If your feet are on the floor, just notice how the floor supports your feet. And if you're comfortable, close your eyes or gaze down softly in front of you. And just breathe. Relax your neck. Lower your shoulders and breathe. And when we do this exercise, I want you to place your hands on your belly. And as you inhale, feel your belly rise and expand. As you exhale, feel it come back in. So with box breathing, we will inhale with our stomach expanded to the count of 4, hold for 4 counts, exhale, pulling the stomach in for 4 counts, and hold for 4 counts. And we'll do that 4 times. And a good way to help you know where you are is to imagine a square, and for each set of 4, move from corner to corner on your square. So let's get started. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And hold, 2, 3, 4. It's an excellent way to slow your breathing in a stressful situation, to clear your mind as you're trying to go to sleep. So now that we've done that, let's do a quick body scan. And if there are places where you feel tension or tingling or stress of any kind, let's breathe through that and imagine that that energy is released into the atmosphere. Let's start at the crown of your head and make your way to the backs of your eyes, your cheeks, your neck, down your shoulders, your upper arms, elbows, down the forearm, out your fingers, your upper body, your chest, your belly, where you're seated on your chair, down your legs, and through your feet. And as you breathe, remember that you were made for this day right here, just as you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. That was really great. Way to start out our day. So Sharon is the facilitator for our session called Sleep, Unpack Those Bags Under Your Eyes. So the problem is that we're tired, we burned a candle at both ends, we cut back on our sleep to make our days longer. And so her session is going to cover assessing our value on sleep, straight talk about the ways we abuse our beautiful bodies by cheating on our sleep, and making a plan for protecting our sleep and that of our families. And so now I'm going to turn things over to Sharon so she can address the solution.
Thank you so much, Allie, and thank you so much, Andrea. I very much appreciate the way that you started the session. So I think one of the beautiful things about momentum, notice that we said in the description, your beautiful bodies. And it's one of those areas that we tend to criticize ourselves a lot. We're hard on ourselves. And as we're going through today's session, I want you to think about several things. Number one, I'm going to offer you a rich buffet, but I also want you to include things in the chat because there is no one size fits all. So I always see these kinds of sessions as being very collaborative, and I want to encourage you to perhaps put in there tips that you've used that have worked for you that might work for somebody else. Having said that, not everything works for everybody. Just as we're giving a rich buffet of lots of ideas, no one likes everything on a buffet. So you want to pick and choose the things that fit your situation that are right for you. But I also want you to think about the fact that you may be stewards for people that you're supervising, people that you work sideways with, and even stewards for upper management, because I believe we sometimes have to help them in terms of dealing with situations, and sometimes helping people understand that they're tired and things that they're doing are coming out in their work. That's important. So look for things like that, but more importantly, really think about your own playbook and maybe some things that you can perhaps mindfully recognize that you're doing that work, so you notice them, and more importantly, you can teach them to other people and pass them on. So it's being able to notice those things and perhaps add new things to your playbook. So we know the 3 keys to human behavior are 3 things: awareness, accountability, and action. But the most important thing is it comes down to a series of choices. You'll notice that diamond there. If you know anything about flow charting, that's always where the decisions are made. So this is a lot about what are the kinds of choices that we're making. So we're going to actually take a quick assessment, and I want you to think about, what do you typically do? And I will give you some context to the question, but then on the slide, I'll actually show you the real question. So let's go through this and perhaps put your answers in the chat box, perhaps write them down, whatever makes the most sense for you in terms of participation. So the first question is, are you feeling pushed? Are you like that plate spinner that's got lots of plates going? Plate number 1's your family, child number 1, child number 2, child number 3, your job, your pet, your job, your relatives, your job. You know what I mean. There's so many plates that are spinning at the same time, and sometimes you feel like letting the darn plates drop. So the question is this: are you feeling pushed and owned by the clock? Next question. We all know that we only get 24 hours a day. Me, you, and Bill Gates only gets 24 hours. There's no such thing as that old commercial that used to be on about rollover minutes. So this is one of the places where we have the great equalizer. We're all blessed with the same exact amount of time a day. The question is this: do you consistently cut back on your sleep just to extend your day? Next question. Sleep rituals. I have to be called out on this one. So my brother and his wife moved in with us with their 3 children for several months. Now you may think that sounds terrible. It wasn't, because my sister-in-law cooks. She made an amazing meal for us every night. But my brother said one day to me, after we had spent some time together, a lot of time together, he said, do you notice that you and John fall asleep on the couch and then you get up about 1 o'clock in the morning and drag yourself into your bed? He said, that's terrible. You should have more routine about when you go to bed. You know what? He was right. And we changed our situation after that. So the question is this: do you fall asleep in front of the TV and then drag yourself to bed? Next question. Do you stay up late and you watch TV or stay on your laptop? Do you have a TV in your bedroom? Do you look at your phone? Do you read on electronic devices? These are the things that we know we have to pay attention to. Here's another question. I realize many of us are not driving right now, but think about this. Have you ever turned up the radio or rolled down the window, or maybe even slapped yourself a few times? How about that one? While driving to keep awake? If so, you've been a drowsy driver. Guilty. Do you have a TV in your bedroom, and do you go to sleep with it on? So that's an important thing to really think about, because as we look at this, it's a matter of that TV staying on. And my sister is head of speech and hearing at Penn State, and one of the things that she said is this: if you sleep with the TV on, your ears are constantly seeking out the sound, and your body is staying in an agitated place, and it's not relaxing. So think about that. Oh, look at this one. When my husband and I got married, he brought his mattress into our marriage. Sounds great, right? Well, it was. It was a nice mattress for a time. and then for a longer period of time. And he kept saying, I said, honey, we need a new mattress. He said, it's got a 20-year guarantee on it. Are you kidding me? So I did a session up in Coleman, and it was for a group, and it was a very small group, and they were apologetic about not having many people there. I said, well, let's get to know everyone. And one person introduced herself and said that she worked for Serta. I said, oh my gosh, I love Serta mattresses. And I talked about the commercials. I said, you won't believe this. My mattress is old. And I told her how many years it was. She said, are you kidding me? She said, listen, we have a friends and family program. I can actually get you a mattress. Now, it'll cost you $100 for our top of the line mattress. Are you okay with that? I said, are you kidding me? And I thought to myself, I can make friends fast. I can be her inner circle. So the day the mattress came in, John had to go pick it up because I was not in town. She brought him on the plant floor and said, his mattress is 20 years old. And they all had a collective, oh, are you kidding me, man? He got humiliated. It was great, y'all. That's all I can say. But was your mattress old? So do you have just a great mattress? And by the way, when we got our mattress home, I had gone into the Westin and had clipped all of their mattress tags. Yes, I'm that person they're looking for, and duplicated all the linens and did it exactly like the heavenly bed. It's amazing. Do we ask individuals to travel and then come back immediately to work, especially overnight travel? Do we ask them to come in on off days? Do we include sleep deprivation and its harmful effects in our training programs? Do we mandate safe driving that covers sleep deprivations for those who travel? Is that included in there? Does it cover sleep? So it's really thinking about, are these things a part of what we do? And by the way, I should have mentioned this one. Do we have people bragging, I get along on 4 hours sleep a night? Have you heard people say that? I have. And by the way, the research tells us that men are more likely to drive when tired than women are. And in fact, they will argue about the fact that they are competent while driving when they are indeed impaired. So just think about, is that part of your corporate culture? Because I believe it is. You have a right to speak up, and actually you should speak up. Finally, does your OBGYN ask you about your sleep habits? Are you ever asked about at least 1/3 of your life and how you're doing in that area? Sadly, my OBGYN did not ever ask me that question. But one day I happened to be in his office for my annual exam, and I said to him, he said, how are you doing? I said, I am so tired. He said, what's going on? I said, well, honestly, probably for 20 years, I haven't slept well. I'm just exhausted. He said, oh my gosh. He said, I can help you with that. And so he and I had a conversation later after he got me to UAB Sleep Clinic, and we did some work on that. And I said, I'll be honest with you. I think this is something you need to ask everyone about, because this is such an important aspect towards, are we taking care of our sugar in our bodies? Our weight gain, all of these things are connected to not sleeping well. And those are things that we have to be very, very careful about. And the reality is that if we're not sleeping, there's damage that's happening because your brain needs to be reset. This is critical to your mental health. Also, again, think about your sugar being processed. So as we think about this, let's go to that chat box again. And Allie, I'm going to ask you to pay attention to that if you don't mind, because I've learned I cannot multitask on Zoom. But I want you to think about what got your attention in the assessment. Where are you doing well? Where are those areas? Because we should acknowledge the things that we're doing very well. And what do you need to work on? So let's populate the chat box. What's going on here?
All right, we have someone saying they meditate to sleep.
May I say something about that?
Mm-hmm.
Did you say meditate or medicate?
Meditate.
Meditate. Yes, we are going to talk about that because that's really important, and that's a wonderful practice. And listen to what Andrea said at the beginning about the 4 square breathing. That's such an important technique that's used literally all over the world. And so it's just a great technique. So hold on to that. She's modeling for you a very important practice. So that's great. So as we go through, again, continue populating the chat box. We love to have participation, and that's really important. So let's talk about my family. I'm going to give you a bedtime story about my family, and it's not a good one. So this is my family's card, June 2006. We had met at my parents' house. We had a meal for Father's Day. Everyone came. It was wonderful. My sister and her husband, their 4 children, and an extra niece all took off to go to Six Flags. Then everybody fell asleep in the car. Everybody fell asleep in the car, including Alan, who was driving the car. The car rolled over 1.5 times, landed in the median. Luckily for them, an emergency room nurse and an EMT saw the accident, drove over there, opened their car doors, unbuckled everyone's seatbelts, and dragged them out of the vehicle. Amazingly enough, there were only 17 stitches among the 7 passengers that were in that vehicle. But Alan, my brother-in-law, is a man of just amazing accountability. He owns his behavior. And when my brother went to pick his daughter up from Anniston Regional Medical Center, Alan met him at the door and said, "Bob, I didn't take care of your daughter today. You entrusted her to me with a full expectation that I would take care of her. And I didn't do that. I fell asleep at the wheel." He said, "We are such good stewards about sleep for the children. We have not been as good about sleep for ourselves. And that changes as of today. We are never going to do this again." And so they made a rule that the kids would go to bed at one time and they themselves would have a set bedtime for later. Interestingly enough, I have worked in Huntsville for about 5 years, working for a client there, and would spend many nights at their house in Madison. And I would go to sleep when they did, because another rule they had was this: if you wake up cranky in the morning, you've got to go to bed 30 minutes earlier. And they said they actually had children that had to have dinner served to them in bed because they were so cranky. So I made a point of saying, I am never going to be cranky. And so, but it wasn't just my sister and her husband, it was me. I was chronically sleep deprived. First of all, my husband got sent to Augusta, Georgia when she was 3 months old for a month. Notice the air quotes. 2.5 years later, they finally brought him home. We did not know it was going to be extended month to month to month to month to month. And so Casey just didn't sleep well. She cried all night long. It was terrible. And I would go into work the next day, and I was head of human resources for a big organization. And I would talk to my staff and say, "Hey guys, I just want you to know, Casey kept me awake last night. If I don't have a happy looking expression on my face, it is not you. There's nothing that you've done is wrong. Everything is great. Please come in. Please come see me. I need to continue working, keep my mind off the fact that I'm tired." What was interesting about that was that my leader, who was a female, said, "Sharon, I need to have a counseling session with you. You're showing weakness to your staff by sharing that." Interestingly enough, in getting ready for this particular presentation, I asked one of my team members back then, I said, "What did you think about that?" She said, "Sharon, it kept us from making up stories that you might be mad at us." So I disagree with her, and I'm sorry. I think it's better to tell your group where you are, but again, not to use an excuse for getting out of work. But then I went to another employer. I was working 7 days a week and coming home late in the evening, putting Casey to bed, again up at night till 2:30 in the morning. I did that for a long time, and it was awful, and I was exhausted. And then finally, I drove about 3 blocks from my house, getting ready to go to a big session, and I realized I couldn't make it. I was just too tired. My husband had to come get me, and I had to do something about that. So the sad part about that is I agreed to that arrangement. By staying there, I was a part of it. I have to own that. But then there's Jerry's neighbor. Oh my goodness. Jerry Cleveland is a great friend of mine. He worked for Energen. He and I traveled a lot. He told me this great story. He's just an amazing storyteller. He said one night his daughter's dog was barking. So he went down to take her outside and he heard water outside. And he looked over to the other neighbor's driveway and he saw that his neighbor was out there and she was in her nightgown washing their car. And he said, Carol? Carol? He said she would not wake up. So he went to the door and knocked and said, hey, Gary, Carol's out here washing your car. And the husband said, oh my gosh, she took Ambien last night. He said, I was afraid something like this might happen. He said, can you help me get her inside? And Jerry said, well, could she wash my car first? So there's always some humor that's there, but it is to think about what are the consequences of some of the things that we might take. But what does William Dement say? He's written this amazing book called The Promise of Sleep. And you see him a lot on the Today Show. He's considered to be one of the world's experts on sleep. And he says, when we're tired and we have a lot of sleep debt, he said that the mind and the body is going to demand to be paid back. And you don't get to choose when it's going to be paid back. So you can't cheat yourself on sleep all week long and then, quote, try to catch up on the weekends, because it can occur in the afternoons or when you're extremely tired. So be careful about that. Dun, 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 dun. Should we have like a little like rooster? Daytime. Let's talk about this. So one of the things I want you to think about is that during the day, you're preparing for the night. So let's think about that, some actions we can take. So perhaps maybe it's cutting back on your caffeine or maybe stopping your intake really early. Now, having said that, I will, in full disclosure, tell you that one of the things that UAB Sleep Clinic found out about me was that I was hypersensitive to caffeine. I can have no caffeine. I know for some of you that's like, oh, are you kidding me? So that's tough, but maybe you might have a bit of a sensitivity as well. So think about that, perhaps could be true for you. You also want to make sure that you drink plenty of liquids that really give you hydration and electrolytes. And it's important to understand water does not provide the electrolytes. And you'll get leg cramps. Right now I'm taking a brand new medication that's causing a lot of leg cramps, which is really a problem. It's that jump out of bed at night, trying to straighten your leg out kind of situation. You understand what I'm talking about. So during the day, I'm trying to be really careful about making sure that I drink a lot of liquids, particularly some that have maybe some of the power drinks without the caffeine. But we want to make sure that as you're thinking about this, because for example, when I was out working in companies, I would take a lot of bottles of water with me and I could monitor exactly how much water I was getting. Not now that I'm working from home. That has been much more difficult. So I would encourage you to really think about how are you doing in that area. This last one is really near and dear to my heart. I'm a master trainer in crucial conversations, but one of the things I know is this. If you do not resolve a conflict, it will stay with you. And particularly when you're in bed and it's quiet and there's nothing to distract you, those conflicts will come out and really come after you. So really think about the fact that you need to get some resolution. And if nothing else, make the first step by reaching out to the person to plan for having a conversation about what's going on. And also, I know that all of us here are big Brene Brown fans. One of the people said in last week's session that they had a lot of anxiety from crowding thoughts and things that were bothering them. And so I would encourage you, if you have not seen this particular version of one of her videos, is TEDx at Kansas City. This is the one where she talks about foreboding joy, where we borrow foreboding and we worry and then we rob any situation of joy and we imagine the worst things that are going to happen. So if you've not seen that, I would encourage you to get that and see what's happening there. So one of the things that you also might consider is this, writing down every single thing during the day so you're not trying to keep up with it at night. Because if you do a daily dump and really make sure that to-do items, things that you have to, errands you have to run, phone calls you need to make, whatever the thing might be, go ahead and write it down. The worst thing you can do is try to keep it up here, because now you're consciously trying to juggle a lot and trying to keep all the balls in the air, and then you start getting afraid that you might miss a detail or forget something. David Allen, who wrote the book Getting Things Done, says your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. So I would encourage you to really think about paying attention to that particular quote and see if that works for you. So now, let's talk about the evening. And again, you're preparing for the night. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot have anything to drink. I'm not saying that. Again, you're choosing what's best for you. But what I am saying is this: if you're using alcohol to go to sleep, do not be surprised if you wake up later, because alcohol can bring on sleep, but it doesn't keep you asleep. Worse yet, you also wake up with a dry mouth as a result of that, because it takes moisture out of your body. So again, just think about what makes sense for you. And you know, the second one tip on here, there's a good reason for that, ladies. Now, this may be a little controversial because we all love our phones. We have an intimate relationship with our telephones. But I would encourage you to really think about not having it beside your bed. And that's hard because it's our first habit to reach over and grab it and check and see what's on there. But here's the problem. This has a source of, number one, light that is getting to your eyes. The second thing is, even if you have that do not disturb feature on there that makes it go into more brown edition, it's still not good enough. And the other part of this is, there are itchy things that are on this: text, emails, social media, etc., all things that are robbing you of your sleep. So if you can possibly move it into another room, think about, would that work? And don't you love Anne Lamott's quote here? Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. Wow, don't we all need to hear that? Let me talk about introverts. I'm married to one. Honestly, I was disrespectful of introverts. When John and I got married, I was thinking, there must be something wrong with him. He doesn't have as many friends as I do, and he just is not as lively as I am. And perhaps if you know, we stayed married long enough, it's going to fix him. Well, of course it didn't. And I went to Myers-Briggs training. I know this is going to sound ancient to you guys, but let's face it, I'm a mom. 1989, you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's old. You're right, I am old. But one of the most important things that came out of that class was learning to appreciate introversion. I suddenly realized his introversion was a gift to our family. It was a wonderful oasis. And in fact, John would actually have little rituals about waking Casey up and taking her down in the morning, covered up. And I said, honey, I think you're babying her. He said, no. He said, this is my time with her. Please don't interfere with that. And he was correct about that. But here's another thing, because I've studied so much about introversion, is that, and this is one of the things I say in my training classes, introverts must have time by themselves every single day. Every single day. Now, lunch may be your I time, but one of the things we also know is this, is that you may also be getting up extra early to have time by yourself, or staying up late to have time by yourself, because sleep does not count as introvert time. And so I have become a champion introvert wife. I champion my husband's time by himself. I make sure that he has uninterrupted time. I am really careful about that. And I'm much more respectful of that than I used to be. So really think about how you personally might be doing. Is this something that might be impacting you? Or it may provide to you a clue about something that's happening in your household. Maybe your spouse is staying up later. I've read a lot about how people are unhappy about uneven bedtimes, and they believe that people should go to bed at the exact same time. Maybe the reason why your spouse does not want to go to bed at the same time you do is because he or she needs time by themselves. So it's really thinking about that. And perhaps you're doing that. That may be an answer. So again, as we think about this, think about that ritual. Remember, I was the one who fell asleep on the couch and then dragged myself to bed. After my brother raised that issue, I really started thinking about that. And moreover, our daughter, Casey, she said to me one day when she was probably about 5 or 6 years old, "Mom, I'm scared to go to bed at nighttime." And she sleeps upstairs. We were sleeping downstairs. And she said, "I don't expect you to change the sleeping arrangements," but she said, "I'm just afraid." So we started thinking about what could we do to actually have a better situation for our family. Number one, no news at night. We've totally cut it out. We don't have anything that's tense, anything like that, because we do not want those thoughts in our heads before we go to bed at night. It's just not good. But we also found an amazing practice of going upstairs in her bedroom, all crowding her bed together. And the first thing we would talk about is, what is the best thing that happened to you during the day? It's such an amazing question. And what's interesting, nursing homes actually know about this because they'll ask their residents, who gave you your first kiss? Tell us about your first car. And it works on the practice of transfer reality, where you bring a good thing into the present and re-enjoy it again. So we found that by sharing these things that happened to us during the day, we all felt more positive and could enjoy each other's amazing moments. And then we had a practice of praying for people. But I think if you want to think about people that you want to remember, pray for, meditate on, whatever that might be your practice around that. But the last thing was this, and it was so much fun. We have these. And these are stars that become fluorescent at night. And each one of us would have one and make a wish and then throw it across the room. And it was just amazing. Of course, in the morning, there was lots of plastic stars on the floor, but it was such a great ritual. And Casey's 33 now. So what happened? We did it the entire time that she was all the way to high school. Then when she went to college, she would call us a few times every other week and say, "Hey, what's the best thing that happened to you?" The great thing about it is she still does that. Every now and then she'll call and say, "Hey, can we pray together? Can we talk about the best thing that happened to us?" So it became something that really became part of our family tradition. So consider something that could impact your own family. I think we should have some sort of nighttime song here. So the question you want to think about for yourself is this: how much value do you put on sleep? Do you think it's something important that you need to pay attention to and that matters to you? Or is it something that's to be chiseled away and that you want to get by as little as possible? I would also encourage you to think about not having a TV in your bedroom. Because number one, not only is the noise factor there that my sister talked about, but also I've done some research and found that your eyes actually seek out the light from the TV. So even when you're trying to go to sleep to it, your eyes are looking for that particular light and being drawn towards that. And I would encourage you to get these. Not very fashionable, but these actually block the blue light that comes from our electronic devices and from the TV. So it's a way of shutting off that extra light that you might be getting. Think about this, extra pillows. So when I was pregnant with Casey, I decided I was going to do natural childbirth. Now that was a great plan. It was in place for 9 months until the day she decided that she wanted to come. And she was super late. And I was in labor for 24 hours and she finally decided to come, and I had, unfortunately, a C-section. But I will tell you this, the first 23 hours, I was a power person working my way through all of this. And before I delivered Casey, I actually went to a training class at St. Vincent's about how to manage pain, how to have a great pregnancy, how to manage the aches and pains that come from pregnancy, and how to power your way through labor. So again, but what I found is these techniques actually work for any situation. In fact, our instructor was a cancer pain management specialist who taught this. So one of the things that she taught us to do was to actually put one pillow here and one pillow over here, or a long pillow, and have your knees so they're actually apart, and make sure your ankles are not touching one another. Another technique she taught us was this, and the pillow actually extended all the way down to the feet, so that both bottom leg and top leg were literally parallel, so your hip wasn't dipping in. Because one of the things that happens is at night, our joints are taking a beating by pulling in. And she even taught us to have a pillow when we were on our side and having this top arm extended and a pillow that was out in front. Those are great techniques, and I still use those techniques today. So consider if that might work for you. Also think about how much light is in your bedroom. I work with a lot of organizations, UAB, Mercedes-Benz, ASIPCO, many of the people that are your sponsors. And the night workers complain about the fact that they cannot sleep at night. Why is that? It's because they work during the day, during the night. They get in their cars when morning has broken, and now they're driving home in sunlight, and it's reawakening their bodies. And they're going home trying to stay awake, and they're exhausted, and they're getting very little sleep. So one of the things that's good advice for all of us is to really check out how much light is in your bedroom. What's the temperature? Perhaps using a podcast or an Audible book, having a story read to you. And again, be sure to use the timer feature. How do we use the morning to prepare for the night? One of the things we say in Change Anything is this: be the subject and the scientist. Take a step back and figure out how you're doing with your sleep. If you slept well, stop and take a look at why did it go well? Why did you sleep well? What happened as a response? What did you do during the day? What did you do during the night? What was taking place? Or if you slept poorly, take a step back and again, go back and examine what happened to you during the night, what was happening to you in the day before, and journal about that so you can start seeing your own patterns. The other thing that will help as far as doing that is that it's great information for you to take into your doctor and show what your sleep patterns have been about. So it's something for you to really consider. The question we ask is this: does somebody need a nap? And could it be you? So I would encourage you, if you've not read either one of these books, The Promise of Sleep is amazing. It will teach you everything you ever need to know about sleep. Power Sleep by Dr. Mass. And by the way, I've got a handout that I'm going to encourage you to ask for that will have these books listed. I'm a huge reader. I want everyone else to read. Change Anything is also a book that I did not put on the thing here, but I thought it might be good for the subject and the scientist information. So I will actually put the links to that. I'll put these books in the handout also. So just a shameless plug here. I'm really excited because I've been working on a book called Cure Your Staph Infection, The Leader's Guide to Dealing with Workplace Drama, Contagious Bad Behavior, and Knots in the Pit of Your Stomach. Every chapter starts out with a confession of things that I've done poorly, lessons that I've learned the hard way, and Joseph Grenny, who is one of the authors for Crucial Conversations, has written the foreword to that. But also I have other training classes that you might be interested in that might give you some ideas of things that you might want inside your organization. And I'm doing everything virtually, so it's pretty easy in terms of doing that. And I want to thank April for being the CEO of this amazing organization, for Andrea allowing me to work with the team in terms of working with you on training situations, and with Allie for always hurting all of us kiddies every single week.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing all of that with us. It was really helpful, especially to hear your personal experiences in learning more about sleep. So I think we have, go ahead.
Can I add one more thing? I'm sorry. Yeah. I do have a handout where I've listed the questions that I asked, as well as some tips embedded in those questions. So if you want those, I know that Link provides one of our sponsors that we had at the last conference. So I put my Link QR code on there that might help you. I give my cell phone number out to everyone. I have no compunction about that. It's not a problem. Call me. I'm buying myself a lot, so help me out here. So give me a call. But I would love to send you the questionnaire, and that will have the reading list in there. So, and please put momentum in the subject line, and that way I'll know it's you. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we have a few questions for you.
All right.
So to start out, how do you feel about naps? Are you an advocate for them?
I actually think masks are great. Number one, because they provide you that they cut off one of your senses that you might be having in terms of light pollution. And you want to think about light pollution because it's ruining your sleep. It's coming through your eyelids. That's why a lot of night lights are a problem. They can actually cause vision problems for us later. Believe me, I've studied all of this because I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but it's something I've tried to look at in terms of what's happening with my own sleep. And so masks are wonderful. I mean, if you can find a good one that you enjoy. Now, we're obviously talking about the sleep mask, y'all. We're not
Right.
talking about this. So, just for distinction here.
Would you mind going back to the previous slide? I think some people wanted to get your...
Absolutely.
So our next question, how does your diet affect sleep?
The diet actually affects your sleep a lot. So you want to think about how much time do you have to process what's inside your body. So some people do great in terms of spicy foods, have no problem at all. Some people don't. And again, it's starting to notice and journal what happens to you. I know that I particularly try to cut off any food intake by at least 7:30 is usually the latest that I eat anything. It's because I want my body to concentrate on going to sleep and not trying to digest everything that's there. Plus, I also worry about hiatal hernias. If you lie down after you eat, anything that could be stuck in your esophagus could have a problem. So think about that in terms of that. But if you can sort of push the heavier meal to earlier in the day, that might give you some success. So think about that.
Is it okay to take a nap during the day? And if so, for how long?
So interesting question about naps. One of the things you have to figure out for yourself is this, is are you sort of saving up all the much needed sleep for that quote power nap and then sort of cheating the rest of it? So you want to think about, is that the situation? And then it causes you to have problems later on. But if it doesn't, I mean, honestly, y'all, is there nothing better than a great Sunday afternoon nap? I mean, really, is that not like the best sleep of the entire week? It's so amazing. So it's going to that with full knowledge about perhaps the impact that it might have, but sometimes it actually takes the edge off of your next night's sleep, having to do everything to restore your body. So I'm sort of in favor of naps. I think they're great. I'm not as much in favor of caffeine in the afternoon because it's because we get so tired. It's easy to think I can just have one more cup of coffee, and that could be the very thing that actually keeps us awake at nighttime. So it could help you at 3 o'clock, but not at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock.
So what time should we cut off caffeine in the day?
I would encourage you to really think about, the latest research says it needs to be as early in the day as you possibly can, because the life of caffeine is so much longer than perhaps we realize. So again, it's always really thinking about trying to do as many of those kinds of things like that as early in the day as you can, because again, you want to protect your sleep and make sure that it doesn't filter into that. So if you know your body, but I do think that some of us tend to tell ourselves, I can handle it, I can drink coffee late, and then I'm fine, and then they go to bed and have a terrible night. So it's just really working backwards and figuring out what makes sense for you.
Do you have any good remedies for snoring?
It's interesting. Snoring is actually a real serious situation because we typically think of it as being a noise situation. I would like for you to reframe that and think of it as a breathing situation. In fact, think of it even more seriously as gasping for air. Wow, that's a whole different conversation then. When people are gasping for air, that sets us up for strokes, heart attacks. It is a serious situation. So snoring is typically one of those things that we've seen as a subject of jokes. It's not funny. It's a medical condition that should be dealt with. And furthermore, it can interrupt the individual that's being disturbed by the snoring as well. So again, really think about looking into that and convincing whichever family member may have a problem with that to actually figure out what's taking place and what's causing that.
Do you have any tips on how to put your phone down before bed?
Yes. One rule that I have for myself is that after 7 o'clock, I can't look at it again. I know it's like, and y'all, it was hard. I will tell you this, it was not an easy thing to do because honestly, me and this phone are best friends. I love my phone, but I also realized it was not my friend at night. And so I have cut myself off from social media at night, which is really hard because that's when I can sometimes be able to answer emails and post things on Facebook and social media about my work and that sort of thing, and just my friend stuff as well. But I'm trying to be much more mindful about that. But especially the other room, it doesn't come to bed with me at all now. It's not my friend then.
So a lot of people have had their whole schedules changed up because of the pandemic or working from home. So how do you get your sleep schedule back on track with all that's changing?
And that's such a great question because first of all, I think we have to actually teach the people that we work with that we are not on 24/7. And that's a really important lesson. And I know this from experience because my husband had someone who would call him in the middle of the night. And then I'd say, what did she want? Because it was the same person every time. He said, well, she's looking for a file. I said, was it important? He said, not really. And I said, okay, this has got to stop. Because he would go back to sleep and I wouldn't. So I asked him to please have a conversation with her about, unless it was blood, flood, or death, not to call us in the middle of the night because it was impacting my sleep. So I think the aspect of sharp boundaries is really important. I think we have to tell our offices, hey, signing off for the day. And even one of the people that works at Daxco, and April will know who this is, actually has on any emails that come to her after a certain amount of time, hey, you'll appreciate the fact that during this time I'm taking care of myself. I will answer your emails in the morning. So it's an auto response that she puts on there. But I think we have to really be careful about protecting the boundaries around our family, our sleep, our resources, because the reality is this. If you do that, you'll be much more prepared to handle the next day. And I always remind people, hey, if you ask me for something late at night, it might not be my best work product. It might not be the best thing that I can do. And so I would rather give you a really well thought out, a more perfect idea, a more perfect presentation, whatever the work product might be. And if you'll support me in making sure that I get rest. And it's interesting because my boss who I was working for that had us working 7 days a week, he and I have had many conversations about our time that he said, you know what? I was a nut during that time. I said, yes. And I was with you in that. So we both realized the error of our ways. And now I speak out to people about not getting enough rest. If people come to my house and they're tired, not during pandemic, obviously, I would say, hey, I just don't think you're well enough to drive. Give me your car keys. And I would take them away. The same way I would do if someone had too much to drink. I see it just the same way because friends do not let other friends drive drowsy.
I think we have time for one or two more questions.
Sure.
So do you have any suggestions for getting better rest when your partner is restless?
Yes, and I think that can be just a huge issue. And honestly, I know this is going to sound kind of crazy, but separate sleeping can really be a possibility. I've been doing a lot of reading about that because I've had several clients complain about this. I teach sleep deprivation as part of my time management class, and they talked a lot about that. And so I researched the topic, and it says that we want to be careful that we're not bound by social mores in terms of thinking that we have to be necessarily in the same room. So sometimes parting ways, especially if the other person is, there's a great little child's book out called Can't You Sleep, Little Bear? And the little bear just twirls around and he rolls around and he just can't rest. And I think sometimes we can have partners that are like that. So one of you may negotiate who takes the basement or who takes the den. Sometimes I think we have to do that and really think about what makes sense for us.
Well, Sharon, thank you for taking all this time and preparing for this session and giving us some great tips on how to sleep better. I hate to have to end our time, but if you found these sessions to be valuable, we hope that you'll take the time to visit our website and some different things we have on there, including our blog and our new resource page. And you can also apply for our Upward program. And you can also recommend any friends or colleagues that you have to apply as well. And I'll be posting those links. We also have a mentor matching program, so you can apply to be a mentor or to be a mentee, and that's a service that we offer to our whole community. If you would like to support us, we would love any financial support that you could give. And obviously we love the support that you've given us just today by being here. We are a nonprofit organization, and we can only continue to do what we do with your support. So no matter what amount, your contribution will help us keep the momentum going. So we are going to keep the chat box open for a few more minutes if you have any more questions or comments for Sharon. We really appreciate you all being here today. And next week, we are going to have Renee Washington. She spoke with us for Intentional Tuesdays a few weeks ago, but she is going to be discussing self-sustenance, sharpening the saw during tough times. Thank you all for being here.